I'm Heitor Pereira, and we are here to talk a little bit about what we love doing, writing and playing film music.
Well, Heitor, thank you so much for inviting me here to your studio. It's so nice to be here again.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity as always, and it's so great. Thank you.
So let's start maybe going back to your roots a little bit. You grew up in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
You're born in Brazil. When did you come to America? And I mean, what was your musical upbringing in your home country, and how much of it led you to, I guess, to this point in your life here?
Yeah, look, I come from a musician's family in Brazil, so music has always been, like a part of my life. My uncles played like traditional samba, but also played top 40 kind of music. I was lucky enough as I became more and more serious about making music. I was lucky enough to be part of groups that back up like Ivan Lins, Milton Nascimento, Caetano Veloso, like people that really represent, in my view, a great segment of what we call MPB, popular Brazilian music.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brazil is far away. And principally at the time that I was like starting, it was very hard to get our hands on like material to study and everything. So my first time in America, actually, I came on a Lloyd's cargo in a boat. I paid $150, and I spent, I think, like 17 days on this boat. And I left Rio de Janeiro like at 40 Celsius degrees, and I arrived in New York port, under like a snowstorm, and with a friend to pick me up, at the port and take me to Boston to study there, and which I stayed in Boston for like a year. Couldn't afford the school, but all my friends that were at school, we lived together in a house. Mm-hmm. So everything that they learned that day, they would teach me.
So you were secondhand education.
Yeah. And then I started playing outside, in a Brazilian restaurant, playing bossa novas, playing my own music. And I came here to study with this guy called Mick Goodrich, and I ended up discovering, to me, in my opinion, the father of us all, guitar playing, speaking what kind, it's called George Van Epps. It's a master of compositional writing for the guitar, like Bach.
Yeah.
But with the American songbook in hand. So very counterpunctual, playing, and I got fascinated by it. So after staying a while here, I just got all his material. I got to play with some great musicians, in Boston at the time. So a lot of it influenced me enough to go back to Brazil and continue my studies. But then I needed to earn a living, and my father said, I even brought like a trumpet back with me, and my father said, yeah, but you've been playing the guitar all these years and you brought a trumpet back? So, in 3 months, I said, we need some money. And so I had to start getting to like finding gigs.
Right.
And that's when I played with Ivan Lins for many years, with Milton Nascimento and all these people, until I joined Simply Red in England. And then I came to tour with Simply Red here now, instead of in bicycles, now I was like in limousines, like rock and roll style. And then the latest installment of like our lives in America was after I've lived 10 years in England, playing with Simply Red, 2 years in Ireland, which was lovely. I decided to come to America, and like my second year here, I met, after I worked with the Chieftains. I toured America with the Chieftains, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I played with Willie Nelson Records, and I did a couple gigs with him. A lot of good people, man.
Yeah.
A lot of great musicians, Elton John and many people. I met Hans
Yeah.
And he says, man, all this music that you write, would be fitting for the movies. Are you sure? I said, yeah. He says, man, I'm not sure if this is my thing, And he says, no, stick around, man. Let's work. So he wrote. So he said he needed material for As Good as It Gets.
Yeah.
So I wrote a couple tunes for that, and then he wrote a whole score for guitar and orchestra that was Gladiators.
Right.
And then some days he would say, hey, why don't you come up with something here? And that come up with something here inspired me to come up with more. So, and him being very generous, then gave me opportunities to write and add to his beautiful scores for Black Hawk Down,
Yeah.
for Madagascar, for many other movies. So I'm very dear to him and to his way of introducing me to something
Right.
that actually I remember very vividly how film music marked me when I was very young, from Bambi to a Beatles movie,
Right. Yeah.
and so then I realized that, man, I think I was made for this actually, and yeah, thank God, it's been working wonders, like I'm very happy.
I mean, and would you have ever, even if he never did that, if you never met him, would you be here doing films? Do you think you would have ever eventually found yourself here?
Well, I think,
or were you on a completely different track?
I'm not sure, man. I think I must say my life was never planned.
Yeah.
I never made like big plans. When I joined Simply Red was just because the producer of Simply Red was producing a Brazilian artist that I was playing with.
Right.
And in the end he said, man, I have this British band, would you like to come to Montserrat and try and see how it feels? 10 years later, kind of vibe, right? Ivan Lins himself, this artist from Brazil, he said, you want to come and join my band? And I said, but I don't know how this works. Well, we just play like you played when we jammed before the session, and that's it. And I thought, wow. And so I think throughout my life, the person who I studied with a lot in Brazil, Sergio Benevenuto, who is a brain, for music. A lot of people marked me. One of my uncles, Tio Cesar, who showed me the value and the love for music, like
right.
So, in your face, the way he is with music, that influences me a lot. And then Hans here, so I didn't have plans. So what would have been, of me and my musical life without that person? Probably I would have met somebody else that would have taken me in a completely different direction. But I tell you one thing, the guitar music and the guitarist function was already getting a little boring for me. I must say, I dedicated all my life to this instrument, and by the end of it, when I was working as a session musician here, and even in the last years of Simply Red, I would play the guitar, carry the MIDI guitar with me everywhere I went, but required only to sound as a guitar player in the sessions. That was my function. But I always had the MIDI guitar sounding like a trumpet, sound like a flute, sound like weird synthesizers, and people would say, man, we don't need that, just do your guitar thing, we love you, so I was very lucky I was able to play along with some of my idols of American guitar playing. Right. Gene Parks, Michael Landau, so many. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But my fascination for sound and composition and orchestration, whatever that may be in jazz, right, in instrumental music and classical music, I think was bigger than the success as a solo musician, and now I have an idea and I play it, but it still sounds like a guitar. So I feel that the evolution of that would have been instrumental music, but not necessarily guitaristic.
Right.
You know, which in a way it would have sounded like what I do today if I had the money to pay for the orchestra.
Right.
Which probably I wouldn't. So it would be the music that I do today, but maybe not with this scope.
Right.
You know, because I'm the same person. You know, I've been very lucky to be able to collaborate with directors and studios, and they don't really force upon me, you know, like
That's good. Yeah.
there's, you gotta sound like this. No, they have a temp,
Right.
you know, which actually is my way of learning the music of my peers.
Right.
You know, because otherwise I just write what I write.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have much time to listen to music as I used to.
Right. No free time.
You know, so in a way it's like, man, it's all kind of like, you know, coming together, you know, and I love this moment, because then I still learn as a musician, even from people that are not musicians, like the directors and the
Right.
producers, because now we are talking about what's the sound of this emotion,
Yeah.
you know. And to me, it's a good thing, because it's a world that you dig deeper and deeper, and you discover within yourself and your internal musical language what those sentiments and those feelings are for you, you know, as a person, and how can you put that out, you know, as a musician, and also the same thing to the people that collaborate with you.
Right.
You know, when they say sadness, well, sadness for my director, it may mean not necessarily a total minor chord.
Yeah.
You know, it's just more like of a texture. And with that, I just keep making my repertoire.
And talking about, you know, you're learning all these things from different people, and you kind of adapted yourself to this film music and stuff. But what I love about your writing style, which I think just from listening, it seems like you react. Your music is the reaction of what's going on. I was listening to some of your old scores, and is it something that you can just see what's on picture, and is it more do you improvise to find the melody or the theme, or do you kind of tinker on a piano? Do you watch the picture? Where does the kind of the first notes, I guess, come from you?
I watch the picture a lot of times without music, just dialogue and picture, and many times just picture, and many times just dialogue.
So
You
no
know,
picture and just
no
the sound
picture,
of the dialogue.
just the sound of the dialogue. You know, I learn very quick. If they say we really love the temp, then I know that that's a safe bet,
Right.
right? So I know that I have, I can't fail, because if I go around that, I'm a musician enough to convey the emotion of a temp and it still be original. But that's not what I strive for.
Right.
But that's okay if that's what they need, and I'm okay with that.
But is that creatively rewarding to you?
It is, because as a musician I'm learning, as I said before, somebody else's music a little bit more, and I'm not copying.
Right.
You know, but thank God the majority of the cues that I write today for all these movies, they pretty much are born from the conversations that I have with the filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
So then the process is, as I said, you know, watch picture, and then I pick one character, you know, and I start trying to channel, you know, that character, but not only that character in the beginning of the movie. No, that character that now I've watched the movie 1,000 times, you know, in the beginning, in the middle, in the end, what, you know what I mean, how the evolution of the character, and how that then melody has to work in the beginning, in the middle, in the end, with its own like clothing regarding the time, you know, of that character in the story, in the arc of the story. So when I find a melody that I feel that has this whole arc, you know, then I stick to it, and I start writing many variations.
Right.
Variations, and then I write for another character. And if they're gonna share a screen for a lot of the time, then I make sure that my other character melody, you know, it's somehow something that can hold hands with the previously written melody for the other character. And I go like this. So in my way, I'm already writing, you know, counterpoints.
Right.
You know, and it becomes just more and more fun. You know. So that's my process. That's pretty much my process.
And
Melodies first.
melody first.
Yeah.
So in the melody, I was talking with Lauren the other day. He's a percussionist, so he looks for the rhythm first, which is different, a completely different thing. So you look for the melody first, which I think is interesting. And recently you've been doing animation. So I guess you can talk about Despicable Me 1, 2, and now Minions. And animation is several years of animating and processing, and with something like Minions, they knew you were gonna, and of course you're gonna do the score. So when do you get involved with that process? Do you start looking? Do you wait till they have some finished rendering, like a first pass at the? Do you look at the storyboards? Do you look? I mean,
Yes.
So you start at that point very early.
Yeah, totally. They took let's say 3 years to do the Minions, right? I come in around we still have a year and a half left, so that's when I come in, and they have some sequences. It's all about sequences, really. And some segments of the sequences are already kind of at a point that you see things moving. Some are just one drawing. And if you were to watch that drawing and read the script, you flip for 10 pages, and that character still hasn't changed. So you have to imagine, so having the script is a big deal.
I remember you told me you look at the script and you record yourself. You said you record yourself and you will just start humming things. Right?
Yeah. Because for me, first impressions, emotionally, are different from first impressions at looking picture. I think when you said Lauren, let rhythm drive his process.
Right.
I think rhythm to me, and it does it when I already have picture.
Yeah.
But
have the editing and the pacing.
But the emotion of the story, the melodies come when I'm just reading about them. So I do projects where they don't even have a script yet, but they have some drawings, and I say send me, and I will keep looking at this thing, and I will do little, imagery, in my head, and they tell me a little bit how the character will be, what's the personality, and I start already also in a way developing its musical personality.
Right. And so, I never asked this to a composer, because filmmakers, they don't shoot chronologically, they don't even edit chronologically. Do you compose chronologically from start to first scene to end scene? Do you work that way, or do you there's an action scene here, I can do this first, or is there there's a romance scene, we can get that, I know what to do here, and then fill in the blanks, or do you work from start to finish?
No, I can't work chronologically, because in order to make justice to that idea that a particular melody has to be able to support the movie in the beginning, the middle, and the end. I have to take that melody everywhere.
Right.
Even if it's not in a final stage of orchestration and in development, but at least I grab a little bit, or from a suite, or even a section of it, and I just travel with it through the movie, and that's how. That's how I go about it.
And I also wanted to mention, actually, as I was driving here, one of my favorite albums of yours is Untold Stories, which is instrumental album.
Yeah.
And hearing your music there, comparing it to your film music, when you're writing, instrumental, no lyrics or anything, where does that music come from versus something that's written to picture? What are you? Is it all melody? Is it just how the melody is? Because it's very melodic, the guitar work and the percussion and stuff like that. But where does that music come from? When you're just writing,
right? I must say some of it from the guitar itself. Let's say let's be practical. Let me show you. A little example, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. Let's a structure, it. So if I go. the guitar just keep going, kind of vibe, right?
So that was just improvised.
Yeah. Or if I go like, if I like go, dun 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 dun, right? Let's say, right?
Yeah.
So. So dun 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 kind of vibe, right? So sometimes it's like one little idea, sometimes it's like a guitar thing, because of the structure of the instrument. But I think Untold Stories, like that record, it had a lot to do with like what a guitar can generate, and then some are just like purely. The head came to the melody came to me, and then I thought of a harmony. How can I support this thing? There is a song there that goes like. Sorry. There's like two kids. I wrote it for my kids. So. So I remember vividly, like la da na 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 na, la da na 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 na, la da da na 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 na. But you can really do like. But no, I wanted to make something very guitarish. Right. So say, because it's possible to orchestrate somehow.
And that was for your kids?
Yeah.
So fatherhood inspired that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Like certain life things and stuff.
Exactly. But always like using the guitar as a vehicle to put it out, and then that's what I love about film music for me. As a musician, and how it keeps re-educating myself, because now I can think of all these things or let them just come, but I know that eventually there will be like great musicians in a beautiful orchestra and a choir.
Yeah.
So
it's that baby stage, and then it can go.
Yeah.
Because you have a MIDI guitar. I remember you talked, because a lot of people will just work on the keyboard, but you will attach it to your guitar, and yes, that's how you figure
I
out.
write from the MIDI guitar or from the piano, but a lot of the times it's me, the MIDI guitar, and between myself and the piano.
Right.
So many times I'm thinking of like ideas that are purely like inside my head.
Yeah.
So then doesn't matter which instrument.
Right.
But sometimes I feel that if I need to do like kind of a structure, that will repeat itself, then I think having an instrument that you're very familiar with, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
If you go and then now you orchestrate that, I find that sometimes to improvise, it's good to have an instrument that you're familiar with, but talking about familiarity with an instrument, then that's why I love also singing to the picture.
Yeah.
If I look picture and I go so I have a system where I have a click, where I'm already print the click as I'm improvising.
Yeah.
So I'm going like with my feet. So. Instead of now have to, oh my God, oh no, you know what I mean? So the click is already there.
And sometimes you keep your vocals in the music too. I mean,
Sometimes,
what was it? Did you do a track on Madagascar? Was it Fufi? Was that
yeah,
was that your vocals
yeah,
there
it's
too?
me, yeah. And also, it's crazy because I don't do that a lot to my movies.
Right.
But you know, like Harry, you know, Gregson Williams, we've done many movies where
Domino,
I end up singing and stuff.
Fire.
And with Hans, same thing. But in my movies, sometimes the vocal. We treat it, we do crazy things to it, and you cannot even tell that it's a voice. But yeah, I think the voice itself, it's a great instrument to improvise because I think it's the most instant one. You know, for rhythm, you know, how can I go like, man. You know, it's
you did on Illegal Tender. You had some vocal stuff, which is an old score of yours, which I do like a lot. And
yeah, it's like fun. It's fun.
Yeah, a lot of rhythm.
John Singleton, like I felt, man, go crazy. I felt, okay. But you know, yeah, I really love, you know, the process of like looking for things and trying to somehow find something that it's original for that particular movie.
Right.
So I know that I can be true to the collaborators, you know, to the filmmakers, and say like there is something that your movie has that no other movie has got.
Right.
I'm not reinventing things, but I'm making sure that as much as I can, you know, I'm trying to give identity to it.
Right. So let's talk about Minions a little bit more. So this will be your third Despicable Me world film, and the Minions have always been a side character. They've been the kind of this comedy, comic relief. They'd come in. They don't speak a language. It's a mix of all these languages that they speak, and they've become huge. They're the favorites of fans and everything. But you've always created these little melodies for them throughout the two films. Now they're the centerpiece. Now, did you go complete? I haven't listened to any of the score yet, so I don't know. Have you done it something very new, or did you pull off ideas from Despicable Me 1 and 2?
I think I had to follow the idea of the movie itself, which is a prequel.
Origin.
You know, yeah. So then I had to deconstruct my Minions melody that it's present in the first two Despicable Me's, and pretend that was the birth of it. and then when we are more or less around like the middle of the movie, you start realizing, that is.
So you're able to bring that back.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a challenge of sorts, because the director at first wanted something 100% original, but I felt that in a way I was kind of betraying the audience in not giving them something that I know, as I feel that music is so important to the movies.
Right.
I felt that giving the Minions without there's melody, it would be an incomplete character. That's my belief. That's why I'm a film composer nowadays, because I believe in the power of how film music completes the storytelling, principally in a movie where the characters don't speak a language that means a lot, at least at first.
Right.
I guess through accumulative
material,
you end up understanding certain things. Banana means success, you know. Moji means like love or something. You know what I mean? And then the music is there to support all these minions like adjectives and stuff. But I needed the melody. As I told you in the beginning, I'm kind of a melodies person, you know. So if I wasn't playing it, that's what I had in the back of my mind. And if I ask musicians to improvise on it, it's still to have that in the back of their mind. And that's how we worked regarding.
Right.
You know, there's material, you know, from the first two movies into what is now like their feature, you know.
And it's also interesting because these guys, the comedy aspect of it, they're it's so physical. It's almost like old school slapstick.
Oh, big time.
So how does
I don't think it's almost. You can say it's completely it.
It's completely old school slapstick. There's no dialogue. So you think of like Three Stooges. You think of
Totally, very physical.
Buster Keaton type stuff. Where did you find that the music here we were able to kind of Mickey Mouse it some more? I mean, if a minion falls down the stairs, you go.
It's funny enough.
Or do you kind of let the silence play more?
No much silence. We have a movie that is an hour and 15 minutes, 10 minutes long, and I have 62 minutes of music.
So that's a lot of music.
And there are 7 songs. So you do the math. How physically it's possible to squeeze all that in there. What I love about this kind of like visual comedy, it's something that I grew up on it. Sorry, my stomach is agreeing with me or disagreeing. We have our physical language is an international language. And that's what I think saves the minions, and that's what saves the tourist abroad. And I find that if you have fun with the physicality of the jokes, be it by following the actual movement of it, or by waiting for it to end and then supporting, or just stopping before and let them do the thing. I think in itself already generates so much interesting musical solutions. And moments that I pretty much on this movie. I believe that even following this very physical comedy, we still manage not to do like cartoon a la Carl Starling. We still manage to make material that is can live by itself with melodies. And has, even though they are shorter cues, not like Carl's, but they are shorter cues, you still have an opportunity for development. Beginning, middle, and end. A little story inside the story, told by the music. So for me, it was fun because then with all, as you said, all those crazy, quirky personalities, then the instrumentation of it all, can be, you can take more chances, which I did as much as I could, and I think that was one of the fun elements of like doing this movie and in working with these characters all over again is because I still could reinvent myself, because now they had the opportunity to be even more in the forefront, and so the music could be even more like accentuated, and drink from that fountain of like fun. In the end, I really what I love about animation, it's like I'm a family person. My kids now are older, but I really loved being a parent, a father. And so when I'm writing here, and I'm thinking about stuff, at some points I very easily can turn off the guy who is making it. And I can become the person who this is being made for.
So you can switch from audience to creator.
I think so.
Because I think that's always one of the hardest things, where you have to I need another pair of ears or another pair of eyes. But it's weird though, because so. I feel like when you say that, when I edit something together, I will play it, and then I will imagine myself. I'll play it again, but imagine someone else watching it. I don't know if that's the same thing you're talking about. Like I'm imagining. I'm trying to. I don't know. It's a weird thing to describe, but I know what I probably think I know what you're talking about. Where you can feel like you are someone else watching it for the first time, or how they would maybe.
Yeah, and also you're right. I think it's a good way of going about it. The way you were saying, and for me, because it's a family affair kind of thing. So then I'm thinking like, man, I had a hard week. I worked hard, and I'm gonna take my kids to the movie theater, and I want to have fun. So the word that comes to my mind constantly, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I think this is something that I never forget, and it's something that I've gained a lot by being a musician that spent a lot of my time like working live, really playing for people and looking them in their eyes.
Oh yeah, you get that's a different. I never think of it that way. You see the audience looking at you.
Yeah, man, and you know, and I think there is something about like you understand your responsibility to to make that moment special for them, as by default is special for you because you are doing the thing that you like the most in life, but for them, man, that's what I meant about today wasn't a very easy day. Now, I have 2 hours to be happy, or me and my 15 friends that we all bought the tickets and let's have fun and let's make a party out of this. Man, let's give them that party. And I think let's make sure that we give them that party. And I think with the movies, I really keep that in mind constantly. And the second thing, or not necessarily in that order, is that it doesn't have like an ethnicity in terms of like there isn't a geographical place of birth in the music. I love looking for material that you can tell is being inspired by the blues, the samba, the polka, or whatever, by classical repertoire, but it's still, it wasn't born in a specific place. I love things being as much as I can like international, because then they can travel more, and that's why to me the entertainment lends itself like to success.
Right.
It's when you can entertain as many people as possible, not having to remind them of who they are. It's actually they can just forget who they are for 2 hours.
Right. It's escapism for
escapism or a window into something else. To me, film music and the movies were a window into like a different world. That in some movies were possible. It's like, look, man. Let me go back a little bit and say, like, when we hear the Minions and this non-English, whatever, I tell you, when the first time I heard English as a child, and all those great songs from Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and everything else, it meant nothing to me other than the emotion of the people that were singing and the way they were delivering it.
And the music itself.
The music itself, yeah.
Which is the same with me. My dad listens to a lot of world music, Gypsy Kings and all these other things when I was little, and I didn't speak Spanish or anything, but the music itself is what, I don't know, just speaks to you. You don't have to understand the lyrics.
Exactly. And to me, it's the proof that, the emotions have no borders, no frontiers, man.
Right.
We are the same in many ways, so that when I say make sure that, not as a system, but in the sense of like giving chance for this to reach as many people as possible, and I say the word international, it's just like to make it as human as possible.
Mm-hmm. But I think, it reaches such a huge audience, the Despicable Me movies, and you talk about escaping for 2 hours, dad with his kids, but I think there's more than 2 hours. I still listen to your music that I heard 10 years ago, whatever, when you were writing, or Hans's music. I still carry that with me, and I think people carry stuff with them. If they find something that really speaks to them, they carry it with them for life.
Big time. And the thing is, the instrumental music, right? Mm-hmm. Or music without words, how it has evolved, from jazz, let's say here in America, right? And then it became, fusion, and then it became, many other things, and suddenly I felt that the audience lost interest for it because the music also became very bad, the instrumental music, you know. And I find that nowadays film music is giving people back something to appreciate,
Right.
you know, with the voice of the instruments, but without lyrics, you know, which classical music always did. Classical music always did. Unfortunately, the way classical music gets into people's homes, it doesn't have such powerful vehicle as the movies.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I hope that, and I can see it, you know, like how film music in a way it's bringing also more attention to the classical repertoire itself.
Yeah.
You know, and how musicians from the classical repertoire, principally the contemporary ones, have, you know, gone into film music, and then, you know what I mean, keep like just switching, you know, and how the taste for instrumental music and orchestral music in this case has evolved a little bit more. That some directors would tell you, oh, you know, this music from this or this composer, you know, should we visit a little bit and understand what that thing is?
Right.
So, yeah, man, that's why that's why I'm a musician, you know. And I think it's also our function to also from time to time, if you have a good relationship with your filmmakers, to show, hey man, there is Race Pigs music, there is Villa Lobos music, you know, check this out.
Yeah.
You know, this thing here, this segment, you know, how many pieces of music from the classical repertoire have found their place into, like, you know, into the movies, right?
Yeah, a lot.
And exactly. So I believe that, you know, there is this moment also that we are living right now, and then taking this music live, you know, be, you know, Danny Elfman with Tim Burton,
Yeah,
be, you
great
know,
concert,
yeah, be like I have somebody that
last night at the Bowl they did Back to the Future with the image on the screen, the orchestra performing live.
there you go. I had somebody helping me with a couple orchestrations for, I'm not sure maybe it was this Smurfs movie, but he's a bass player and he plays on an orchestra specialized in playing only video game music, and they travel the world.
Video games live, is it that it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
So, you know, and also the fact that these things are generating money. So, you know, I've my only video game, you know, I was allowed to have an orchestra, you know, and man, wow, amazing, you know. So I think the world is changing for musicians, you know, and for listeners.
Yeah.
And I think film, it's been very effective in a very like important in the way people perceive instrumental music nowadays.
Do you think the state of film music, the state of the film industry right now, with you know, I asked this to Lauren, the state of sequels and franchises and everything needs a certain sound, I think, and it's hard to escape it sometimes. You know, Hans will do a score, and then everyone is doing Inception, everything. Do you think that there is better work being done in the smaller films, or do you think that's a bullshit type kind of comment?
No, I don't think it's a bullshit. No, not at all. I think it's a valid point.
Do you think the business is getting? I guess, do you think the business side of it is getting too much in the creative side of it, or do you think we're focused on what's the opening number weekend versus?
I must say, in my case,
Yeah.
you know, as you mentioned, you know, I didn't force anything, and these movies, thank God, have become very successful.
Right.
And nobody said, like, use that same way you orchestrated the previous movie because that made almost $1 billion.
Right.
Never. The meanings is completely different.
Yeah.
You know, from the two Despicable Me's, and as before we were saying, like, open as the biggest, you know, opening for an animation movie in the UK,
Right.
and hopefully we'll do well everywhere. But I think to me it's great because it's a testament also of, like, hey man, I didn't need to sell off, you know, to take the music to a point where now it has to be, like, transformed in order to, you know, or dumbed down in order to be commercial.
Commercialized, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's what I was saying before about the jazz or the fusion or the instrumental music of the 70s and some of the 80s, and then it became something that was so commercialized and so watered down that then people said, come on, you don't want to throw that at me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody who did that or who does that.
Right.
But the truth is, as a musician, man, I want to have fun. You know, and to cage yourself into your own successes or your assumption of that somebody else's success is the key to your own. That's a waste of opportunity of your own gift. You know, they're all gifted musicians. You know, so you should just look for what you can give. You know, and I think a lot of musicians are doing that in bigger and in smaller movies as well. You know, so I think, look, some people go there just because it was successful, they copy, or they were forced to. But in the end, the ones that push a little bit, and have that's commerciality being like in the premises of like why we do this, then because it's not that, then they feel free to come up with stuff, and that stuff ends up being like the successful thing, and now everybody copies. Well, I mean, it's already past tense for those who did it.
Right. True.
You know,
it's out of their hands. And,
yeah, man. You know, you mentioned Hans. Hans is always trying to come up with something different. But it's not his fault that what he did is so successful that they asked him to do again. Hey, might as well be him.
Right.
It was a school to me, for example. The opportunity to do things. And again, as we were saying before, it's great that these things become so successful, because then it's fuel to the fire of future productions.
I mean, it has to be a business. That's the thing, because it needs money to fuel it. It's a little economy, the business, the industry, to keep fueling itself. Yeah.
Man, and you know what? I love that it's a business, because then it means that people are employed.
Live their lives,
the same way. Yeah, man, the same way. Film music, and in general, in music, allowed me to put my kids through college. I want, if possible, the success of this material to also allow other people in the business, related to this project that we've done, be the musicians, be the orchestrators, be the people that I hire, specifically, and directly in my own studio, that they also can pay for their dreams and to support their families. So that's what success to me, and I feel very happy,
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, I would like to talk maybe about what do you do when you're not in the studio, when you're not working here, which I know this is your life and this is your passion. What other passions do you have? Do you love to travel? Do you love to eat? Like, what does Heitor do when he's not locked away here in the dark?
Yeah, it's crazy. I am very, 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 very passionate about ornithology and birds
That's right. You tell me you take out, you record
sounds.
And
bird migrations, and all that kind of stuff. So we go, I go with my family to crazy places so they can surf and I can watch my birds. So we go to Costa Rica, we go to Bali, to Mexico, to crazy places in Brazil, in Europe, but I'm always with my binoculars and my tape recorder, And so that's one thing that I do a lot, and I'm doing more and more, And
the question that I need to ask now is, how does a Brazilian who loves birds did not score Rio? How did John Paulo get there?
Can you believe that originally it was going to be me?
It was. You were on that?
Yeah, life kind of did things. Carlos came here to meet me.
Yeah, man, I can't imagine that you wouldn't be considered.
I know, but whatever happens, to this day I don't understand very well. But the crazy thing is that by not doing that, I met Pharrell through Hans, and I did the first Despicable Me.
See?
And that generated all these great things too. And Rio, was also very successful. And John, who I love, did a beautiful score. And Carlos, who I respect for having given the opportunity to the birds to speak a little bit, because he's a serious bird lover too. So I mean, it's in the family, so to speak.
So you approve of the British person's score.
Oh, totally. And again, man, totally. I mean, so bird watching, yes, I'm a very family person, so I love hanging at home, with my family, and my wife and kids. And now they're big. They left the house. They do their own thing. But every time they come
in
San Francisco,
yeah.
But every time they come back, not too far, exactly. Lots of birds between here and there. So we get to hang a lot. I have, thank God, life has brought me a lot of friends. That's one of the things that I love doing the most, is just having a lot of people in the house and just playing music and talking. And one loves physics. So I get to learn a little bit more about this. The other one, it's very knowledgeable record producer, has produced many records. So we talk about all this stuff all the time, and many other professions. And so that's one thing. I love eating. I wish I could cook. But I try everything that my friends prepare, and I do like barbecues and grill.
Oh yeah,
I can do well, man. And I tell you where I'm going with this. I think at some point, I will put some of my the profit of what these movies have given me, and to into something that others can work, in nature, and still earn a respectable living.
Right.
But in doing that, they guarantee the one little bit more of the existence of these things that I love so much.
Oh, that's great.
This is something that is like having, supporting projects like this in Brazil, over here. There are a lot of people, a lot of old and young people doing a lot of great things to nature, and to keep it alive, and I want to support that, so I think that's what I do, man. I play when I can, a lot. I play the guitar. I'm horrible at the piano, but I love being horrible at the piano because it's always something that I can get better.
Right.
The guitar, I've been playing for so many years that when I realize sometimes I've been playing for 2 hours and it's stuff that I've been playing for 30 years. So come on, man, be innovative. I'm very simple, man. I read a lot. I read I'm always interested. I follow a lot of scores, classical scores. Yeah. That's like a necessity and a hobby.
The old or new?
Yeah, old and new. But I like also following some crazy Stockenhausen things where nothing makes sense until you keep looking at it and it starts. All the symbols, the symbology of abstract music, and how it was put to paper, and how now you get to sound and repeat that sound. Right. That's the important thing. And so I love that a lot. I have many books from my trip in the boat, the 17 days, a trip to Boston for the first time, and all these books that I brought with me, I still have them. They are good friends. Yeah. They're good teachers, and yeah, man, that's what I do.
That's what you do. That's perfect.
yeah. I'm very happy. But I know there is so much more that I want to do. I tell you one thing, for example. Because of the non-planning, always.
Right.
So then I've done a lot of animation, right? Music, which I don't take for granted 1 second, and its colorful nature allows me to get very colorful with the orchestra.
Right.
But I also have like other sides of my own musician and my own soul that little by little I'm getting other movies where I can showcase a little bit of that, and I think I'm going there at some point.
I would love to see you go dark. I would think you would have a lot. It's just hearing your stuff on others, not even older scores of yours like Haven and
you're right.
Illegal Tender, but like in If I Stay, you did recently, which
you're right. I keep forgetting about that.
Yeah, a little bit. And I know you've been in this animation world for a few years now, but it would be really cool to see you go maybe a little bit more, I don't know, dramatic.
Yeah, no, I totally, I'm totally up for it because you can only sit back into the animation anyway, But also, man, there are so many colors and so many harmonies and melodies and stuff that I know I have inside me, but I would never impose in a movie if that movie doesn't need it.
Yeah.
So they are just there, hanging, and I'm not that kind of person that right now I don't even have the time to say like, oh, I'm gonna write this or that to show people that I can.
Right.
So they invite me. I think with time, people will discover, that there is more to it. As you said, If I Stay, I wrote a score, end of last year for a movie, obscure movie. It hasn't come out actually yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's obscure too. It's called The Jesuit, and man, I mean, these guys were like cutting each other's fingers, and it was heavy.
Right.
Heavy. And my assistant walks in. Look at the screen, it's pure blood, right? But I'm having the biggest fun, man, over here. And she left. Said, wow, what's going on with this guy? So I know I have this stuff in me. I have given, as you said, all this other, I don't know, this other spirits within myself to other composers in their own scores.
It's true, yeah, because with Hans and John and Harry.
So then I'm happy. I just played after years. I was able to have Harry coming here and just play something on a Ridley Scott movie that he's doing. And he said, and then in the end he says, "Why don't you do this in your own movies? Why I'm gonna force this on Gru and the Minions?" And this stuff, it's just too dark, man. And I remember it was crazy because I look at picture, and I started playing, and he said, "This is it, man. I'm gonna build like cues out of this," and I know he will, and I'm so happy because he's again is somebody else that also is there to whatever makes the movie better.
Right,
so there's no ego. And so then he allows the musicians to really give, and he was saying maybe we need to do something together because
I know that would be because you and Hans have co-composed before. I think you and Harry would be a perfect match.
It could be fun.
His electronic kind of bass. I mean, he's a big orchestral guy too, but his Tony Scott sound, and with your guitar work, I think would be a lot of fun.
With
really
Tony
interesting
Scott's,
textures.
Man, I think you're right. I think with Harry and Tony Scott, I think I've done being part of the team that helped Harry to put this stuff together, and collaborating with it. Maybe like 5 movies.
That's
Domino, Man on Fire, The Taking of Pearlham.
What else was there?
Yeah, some other things. But the time will come. I used to be all anxious about all this.
Right, trying to get that out there.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just filling up the bags even more. So when needed, they will be all ready. I tell you one thing: I never run out of ideas.
That's good.
So if I don't run out of ideas for animation, which we need many, and all the time. Imagine for these movies when they come.
Right.
You know, I know I'm not bragging. I'm just saying,
no.
man, it's there. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's coming.
Well, Heitor, thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
your
much,
time
man.
here. And oh my God, such a great chat with you to have
No,
here.
my pleasure, my pleasure.
Yeah. Maybe to close out, can you give us something really serious on the guitar?
Like you know, more like this. You know, so if we go like, you know, like I don't know.
So that's set on piano right now.
Yeah, it's on maybe on a sort of a harp. You know, so like. Something. I don't know, whatever. And then, ta-da! I mean, what I love about these instruments is exactly what I was saying before. Is just like there is so much, you know, that if it's just one sound, the harmonics and all of it, they are perfect for that instrument.
Right.
But when this instrument can become anything,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
I'll show you. Like, if we go like, right? So. Whatever, you know, and then it can be a percussion, can be anything. So nowadays, when I grab the guitar, sometimes I'm hearing this. It's very confusing. Very confusing.
That's very cool.
But it's you know, it's where I'm now, man. I really, you know, I wanna you know, thank you for the opportunity. You know how these things are. We live our lives. In these rooms and very closed up.
Yeah.
But it's great that you ask these questions and we have the opportunity to tell a little bit what led us to this room.
No, it's always interests me, yeah.
What interests me, the opportunity to talk to you, is that in a way, obviously, I'm talking to them too, and that person over there can be somebody just about to get on a boat to Boston.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, you should believe in yourself. You know, dream big. You know, and just continue what you love doing it. You know, because the opportunities are always there. So, thanks for the opportunity to let him or her know that. Just,
Of course.
it's important.
It's very important. It's important to me, so thank you.
Thank you, man.
Very cool.